Welcome one and all to People for People Radio. You're with Santos, Bonacci, and this is the second episode. I'm very happy to be with you from Eugene, Oregon, USA. Very sunny day today. It's been quite coolish, really. No snow yet, but very beautiful weather today, I'm happy to say. And happy to announce a lovely new guest today, and her name is Karleen Tammik. And without further ado, I think I'll just welcome you on right now. Karleen, how are you?
Hi, Santos. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great. Doing really, really well, actually. Health-wise, on every front, really. And looking forward to talking with you again. Last time we spoke, we hit on some of the subjects we'll be talking about today, and they will be truth subjects, of course, mostly sovereignty, and we're probably going to touch a bit on the other subjects you deal with as well. So, but I know that you have devoted a lot of research time to this subject, sovereignty, freedom of the individual, and I reclaim that word individual for those who know legalese well and do not like it. Well, it's also a very good, powerful word on its own, in that we are individualized units of God. And, we are of the same mold, that's why we are called children of God, and we have been individualized, and that is a blessing. It is a blessing to be separate from, but always with God. So it is a blessing to have our own autonomy, our own individuality. And I know that you desire as much as I do to free that individual, that God unit, so that we can experience our full power and glory in the unlimited way in which the creation wants us to. Legal names are binding, they are limiting, they are conditions, etc. And so we're going to discuss that and how we can reclaim all that and our power, right?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So if I give you a little bit of history, because I guess nobody really knows me at all, I can say I kind of keep myself to myself quite a lot until now. So I've been a healer since I was 5 years old. I'm a sacred technician and a multidimensional psychic surgeon. And my whole purpose is soul freedom. What do we need to do to set our soul free? And part of that has been the Live Life claim, looking at the vessel and how, as a human being, we set ourselves free from tacit consent agreements, and also, looking at your soul contracts. What have you got in place that's holding you back? And how we are suppressed as consciousness in physical form. So that's kind of my intro.
Wonderful. And the sovereignty side of it, how?
Well, if you can't claim yourself as an individual, how can you be a sovereign? You have to claim yourself as a being in order to be a sovereign.
Right. So, knowing thyself, knowing yourself first, right? So knowing that you are not just the body, which is what the birth certificate name is really just claiming, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the birth certificate is basically a slavery bond. It bonds you, or binds you to that contract of your life as a slave. But that is just claiming the vessel. It's not claiming your consciousness or your beingness as a soul or a spirit in a skin suit, which is what we all are.
Right. And so differentiating between all of your nature, spiritual, soul, emotional, physical, is that the way to go?
All of it. If you think that we are a multi-dimensional being of consciousness, there are various different levels that we are creating on. If you don't know what levels you're creating on, how do you know where you're being suppressed, where you're suppressing yourself, what kind of attachments you have? So looking at your multi-dimensional layers of your consciousness enables you to be able to set yourself, your soul, your spirit, your multi-dimensional self free, and that's really what I look at.
Right. So I do remember once one of the great teachers on sovereignty, I forget who it was saying that if you address yourself as I rather than we, and make clear what the we is in reference to, the soul, the spirit, the body, one is able to establish that in a court setting, for instance, whereas I, in their system, is pertaining to the identity and the lower ego, the body. And I guess they then take you for not knowing who you are, that you are a multi-leveled individual. So I don't know whether that has much validity and whether you follow that line of thinking, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that if you are one, you're one in wholeness. So there is no I, as in the lower self or your I identity. And it's also, claiming your multi-dimensional self as a one.
Right. Okay, so then you could preface your use of the pronoun I, by establishing that is in reference to your soul and your spirit, which they cannot claim. So, would that be right?
Well, yeah, kind of. But the soul and the spirit, you see, because of the way that your birth certificate works, and also the spells that the Vatican have put on you, everybody, not just you, obviously, you haven't been able to get out of the reincarnation grid. So we have been recycling our soul, our spirit, and each time we come in, we remember less. So that's not correct. It's not that they own your soul, it's that you sell them bits in your separation of self. So if you don't know how to claim your oneness, there are aspects of yourself that you leave behind as a soul shard that you have to reclaim. So it's like putting back all of your soul together to make you that one.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Of course it does. That's right. And how do you do that?
Remembering. Literally, it's a case of remembering. You are putting yourself back together. So a lot of people don't remember. You don't remember your past lives. You don't remember, the alternate timelines that you're working in or have worked in. You don't remember, from day to day, let alone kind of lifetime to lifetime, who you are, where you've been, what you've done, So who are you in this multidimensional reality that you're claiming as yourself?
Right. True. So remembering, and how would you do this? I mean, just with evolution,
sometimes you can get a trigger. I mean, your whole memory is within your skin suit. So having access to the knowing within your body helps you. Your DNA carries every pattern that you have ever created. So, whether it's from an epigenetic standpoint that you've carried something for your blood lineage, or a past life memory, they're all within your DNA. So it's a case of knowing how to access your own wisdom within your DNA skin suit to trigger the memories. There's also, sometimes you can go to a place that will trigger a memory. Sometimes it's people. You come in, you have a particular attachment or agreement with another soul, and they'll trigger a memory for you or with you.
Yeah, had that many times. That's why it's so important to associate with good people, rich of soul wealth, rich of good experiences and good heart, good deeds, and people who will be able to trigger that because of not having a frivolous, superficial, materialistic lifestyle. Those are the ones we need to seek out, and they are the good influences on us. I guess meditating is important. Meditating helps you.
Meditating can help you, but it can also hinder you in that it doesn't. It depends on how you're using it. Meditation is a great tool for remembering. But it can also be an avoidance mechanism. You get the spiritual class, spiritual people that will just keep meditating and actually, disassociate from 3D reality and from their body. So it's how you use it and what your focus of attention is, where you place your focus, I would say, with meditation.
True. So meditation with the purpose of remembering yourself would be the way, rather than meditation for the sake of meditating and for the sake of being isolated, and the self-interest that people have in it, rather than self-empowerment, which then can help others and enable the process in others. I find that, sometimes that can distract you, can take you down a path where you start believing that your efforts won't mean anything anyway, and it doesn't matter, and the world is perfect as it is, let it go, you don't have to influence it for the good, etc. Well, I believe the middle of that we have got certain responsibility as well. Once we awaken and come to a certain level, you can't just, turn your back on those who are not there, even though you cannot force them, and you cannot do it before they're ready. But you've got to be there, and so you do need to use meditation as a tool to help you work in this world that you're in already as well.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. If we weren't in physical form and we weren't here to assist each other, we'd all be on our own. We'd all just be living on our own, so I agree with you that, we're here to help each other, and that, by the law of free will, you can't step on anyone else's free will and their decisions, but you can give them a different perspective.
Yes.
Or rather allow that perspective to be available. And that's what we're doing. It's allowing a different perspective and a different knowing and a different understanding, so that we can help to guide people to themselves.
Yes. Yep. Big task.
Yeah.
In some cases, but there are lots of people waking up, and it's good to see. People are doing it piecemeal, a little slow for my liking, but I guess I was like that since I was very young. I had the different perspective.
Well, you've always been on a bit of a mission, haven't you?
I have.
See, the thing is that I remember you, Santos, from way back before you probably remember yourself. It's like do you remember when we first met?
Was that in England?
Yeah, in Glastonbury.
That's right.
And I'd just come back from a trip to Egypt.
Yep.
And on meeting you, I had a complete recognition, remembrance of who you were, where we had been previously. But I can't tell you because you have to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the conversation went. Yeah, funny.
Right, that was in 2013 September, and I did the talk on the Somerset Glastonbury Zodiac, right?
You did, yeah, that's right, yeah. And I'd asked you if you'd been to Egypt yet.
Nope.
No, there's still something there for you to pick up,
Oh, I know. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So that was an interesting presentation, because the guy who I was quoting material from in that presentation, he was present, he was there, and he was impressed that I was using his stuff to show how unique that zodiac is and how remarkable it is that everywhere in the landscape around Somerset you have the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the businesses and the industry that are in those particular 12 areas all correspond with the signs of the zodiac. For instance, they have the factory, one of the biggest shoe factories in England. I forget the name of the brand.
It's a Clark's. Yeah.
Clark's shoes on the Pisces side of the street, and then on the Aries side of the street, and the line between, of course, is the line between the last sign is the road, which is the line which separates Pisces. The last sign, the feet, the two fish, from the head, Aries, where there is this great woolen industry and big wool factories there on the other side. So you've got wool, Aries the sheep, on the one side of the road. In this town there, just, I forget right now, and then Clark's shoes, Pisces the feet, and everywhere else, the two hills for Gemini, Leo being in Somerset. Of course, Leo is all about summer, so of course Leo is going to be in the town of Somerset, and everything, even from the tour of Glastonbury being in Aquarius, the channeling down the energies from the portal of heaven through that tour. So it was all there, you know. It was a fascinating presentation for me to do back at the time when I was researching it. And I remember when I was a little boy, I just left school, and so I joined a book club so I wouldn't, you know, miss out on learning. I taught myself at home, and one of the books there was about all the mystery places around the world, and the Somerset Zodiac, Glastonbury Zodiac, was there, and how the woman who flew in her aeroplane overhead, she was able to see it for the first time, and then she wrote books about it. I forget her name, but I remember her from since I was a little boy. So to actually go to Glastonbury and do the full circle and teach that and show people the marvel of what they have there was just a lifetime achievement, which I felt very satisfied and gratified to be able to do it. So, yeah, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot that, Karleen. You turned up a lot together with about 100 people that were there. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely brilliant presentation you gave.
Yeah, and then there was a woman who wrote a poem while I was presenting, and it's actually still in the video. If you go to my channel and punch in Glastonbury Zodiac, you'll see this beautiful woman's poem that she wrote about syncretism and myself, and it was extensive poem, and it was very, very good. It's staggering how she could write such a thing while she's listening to the presentation. So on many levels it was very magical. Glastonbury's always been in my heart, and I got there and met you, so that's wonderful. I think what we're going to be sharing with folks today, since we have in our hearts the subject of sovereignty, just as Jesus did, because in the Bible there are two Jesuses, as I see it. There's the priest and there's the king. And the king, Jesus, is the one who teaches us how to be kings. When he was before Pontius Pilate, he was acting as king because he was asking the questions as king. So, and when he was in the boat, the citizenship boat, and all of his disciples were sleeping, because that's how they see you. If you are a citizen and you have a citizenship, they see you as sleeping on the ship or lost at sea. So what Jesus did was he awoke from there were storms, you see, and the boat was moving frantically, and that's the storms of humanity. And so the first thing he did was he calmed the storms, because we have the power to do that, because we are sovereign and we are gods. And so we don't need these little corporate names to do commerce. Well, if you want to do commerce, which is great, right, everyone does commerce, but to know that it is just a vessel, it's not you. So Jesus separated himself from that vessel and the ones who were sleeping therein, and walked on the waters. So if we want to walk on the waters of maritime law, there are certain ways to do it. And that's what we're going to be thrashing out today, aren't we? We're going to be talking about how you can change your life, your attitude, your perspective, know who you are, and then you can also do things on the paperwork level to improve, well, I guess your true status and standing in relationship to this commercial beast. Yeah. So what are some of those steps there, Karleen? I guess you're the right person to be asking.
Well, I have some knowledge. I'm not going to claim to have a lot of knowledge, because I have concentrated more on the soul contract I do. Well, I'm in preparation of a soul or a spirit claim. So that's something I'll come back to in a minute. So the things I would suggest are, the first thing that anyone would want to do is make a live life claim. So a live life claim is claiming your vessel. You've spoken about this before, Santos.
Yes.
And the way that you do that is through parse syntax grammar. So you would need, anybody who wanted to do a live life claim would have to have the knowledge of how to parse syntax grammar.
I've got a fair bit. I did assist or go to one of David Wynne Miller's presentations. It was in, I think it was 2011. I went with my brother and my son. So he would have been 19 at the time, yes. And that was good. I learned quite a bit, but not enough. So
the place I would suggest people go is to mark, I'd say it again correctly, or correct. It's :, Mark, hyphen, Kishon, : Christopher. He does presentations, he does a webinar series where you can learn the knowledge you need to make a live life claim, to rebut any contracted letters that are coming through the postal service, through your letterbox. And he's the person that I did his course, and I also worked with one of his plenipotentiary judges down here in Devon. But that's where I would start, is either looking at David Wynne Miller's work, or from Mark's.
Now, David Wynne Miller has passed on, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Yeah.
I remember speaking to him the day after his presentation. I booked a one-on-one with him and my son, and he was telling me how he would stay up all night. He didn't have to sleep. So I believe that is also part of where we are heading together with breatharianism as well, but that's another subject altogether. It's interesting, though, that he was able to survive. I find I'm surviving on a lot less sleep these days as well, and it works. It does. But that's just a side thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was a breatharian for 3 months. And I found that although, yes, you can survive with breatharianism and remineralization, if you're using the mineralized spray on the skin, that, or you're breathing in the minerals from the atmosphere, if you're living in a decent quality environment, that helps. But you do lose some grounding with breatharianism, because you're not actually physically absorbing anything.
Yes, gotcha. Yes, I have tried some extensive dry fasting, so I'm practicing. I'm practicing. But look, I mean, in my way of thinking, I long for the day that I don't have to just continue eating. I enjoy eating, but I certainly do hope that I can escape this limitation as well. I see it as a limitation, because now the system has got us where they want us. We need to eat, so therefore they make food businesses and food industry, and the whole thing is industrialized and commercialized and put in on a place which is really probably bordering on gluttonous, and where people are really focused on eating and dining, and like it was back in the days of Pompeii, where outside the restaurant there was what's called a vomitorium. One moment, just go to the door here. And what they would do is they would gorge on 3 or 4 courses, and then they would go straight to the vomitorium, which was just a trough, really. and they'd put their fingers down their mouth, vomit all that 3-course meal, and go back for more. So, and then Porphyry was around in those days, my favourite philosopher of all time, Neoplatonist, 3rd century, vegetarian and astrologer, of course. They burned all his books. We do have his house system still today, but we don't have any of his astrology. Well, reason being was he was back then, he was speaking of veganism and vegetarianism and how crucial it is for the process of ascension, and he was speaking about all the poor animals who literally would die for nothing, because at the banquets of all the rich, half of the food was not even eaten. It wasn't even smelt. It was just like left on the side, and then that would go into the bins. And he would speak about this wastage of many, many animals that die simply for nothing, because people don't even get around to eating their murdered body parts. So I just thought I'd put that in there so that people know that vegetarianism and the spiritual diet has been around for a long, long time. But we are eaters. We do need food. And so, or at least most of us do. I know there are people who are 100% breatharian, and they're succeeding. And God bless them. They're beautiful people, they're beautiful souls, and they're wonderful leaders. And I hope to get there one day, but I know it will be a long time away. And nonetheless, that's where I'm directed. I'm not one who, I don't want to be in the class of eating and drinking till the flood came and swept them all away type individual, which I also believe does keep us in the body, which we are so focused on, and nothing wrong with that. We have beautiful bodies. It's a beautiful experience, but it's also good to know who we are and to separate ourselves from the identity of that body as well, and have a different and higher individuality that people can know, and that we are on a higher level and they can relate to us on a higher level. And sovereignty is definitely one of the means by which we can do that. That's why we have the 2 Jesuses, the king and the priest. And he taught well how to be a priest and how to be a king, asking the questions, and not just answering, which means to be swearing. And when you swear, you put yourself in a contractual position which is going to bind you. Yeah, so it's akin to spelling, swearing and spelling, and both of those have hurt us many, many times. So this is why Karleen has joined us today, to be able to help each one of us, wherever we are on our path, to be able to have a different perspective and now turn the tables around on the system and be in control of it. As they say in astrology, a wise man rules his stars, a foolish man is ruled by his stars. Same applies with the commercial system. It's a great system. It's been developed over thousands of years and they've perfected it. It's just a perfect system. But it's also a deadly system when you are unawakened and you don't realize what you're doing and how you are interacting with it and putting yourself in a position where you do not need to. And therefore they will use you as the stock. We have stockholders, shareholders. We are the stockholders. We are the stock. cattle, chattel, stock. Well, that's what we become when we don't realise what these papers are all about. So we can turn those papers around and use them to our advantage. Well, I believe you can, Karleen. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's about claiming, yourself, and how you function with the system, how you choose to use it, and what things you agree to join with. That taking that control, joinder with. So it's taking that control out of other people's hands and putting it in your own.
Right. Exactly. So when you go on.
So there's kind of three things that I would say as a contractual thing that you can do as a human being and as a soul. So one of those would be to make a live life claim, which is claiming your vessel, claiming your life. The second one would be to get yourself a sea pass, which means that you are able to travel between ports. And the third one, which is not mentioned at all at the moment, is to make a spirit claim. If you think, right, we have had a 3-pronged attack, right? So you have Washington, you have London, and you have the Vatican. So in those 3 areas, we also have to claim 3 things. So we claim our life, we claim our travel, and we claim our soul, because the Vatican owns all of our soul contracts. And if we don't claim our soul, the Roman Catholic Church, when they come in to do your last rites on your deathbed, that is a spell to bring you back into the reincarnation grid. Here you go, round again. Because we're not aware of the other layers of reality and how we claim ourselves out of the system of domination and control.
Wow. There you go. And all the other little things they do, the communion, the consecrations that they do, the baptisms.
Yeah, all of them are ritualistic ways of keeping you suppressed. And, we're in a name it to claim it system. So you have to, use your voice. In the beginning is the word. We're also programmed by language. It's spells and cursing from cursive language goes into your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, which are associated with your fight and flight mechanisms, where the fear comes from. So being able to undo the spells of silence and tacit consent enables you to set yourself free from the fear that keeps you locked into that system.
Beautiful. I love that. One thing I hate more than anything is fear, because I suffer a lot of anxiety and fears, and I just don't like it, because it's the worst downtime in life that you could ever have. You're fearing nothing in the end. It's all the fears, they're empty, and what you fear will happen the next day. It won't be like you thought it would. It might be worse, it might be better, but it's always different. So it's just not worth fearing, Nonetheless, we do fall, and I do all the time. I still do, and it's one of the things that I can't stand. I want to be happy. I want to be just happy. I don't want any downtime where I'm worried about this, that and the other because of the government or what someone else can do to me or what have you. I want to be free of that. I want to be unlimited, and I don't want to waste any time fearing. I don't like it.
So Santos, one of the things that you can use, I did a lot of stuff on transparent beliefs and how everything that we have in this reality is based on belief, really. So if you can remove your transparent beliefs, then you don't necessarily have to work through them anymore. They're like filters. So one of the techniques that I've been using for a little while is writing down your arguments for limitation, and then you counter argument with that argument of limitation, and it nulls itself. It's like it brings it into a neutral position, so there's no polarity in that. There's no energy left. Mm-hmm. And that's one way of setting yourself free from your transparent beliefs that keep you into that fear mechanism.
Yes. So writing it, you say? You suggest?
Yeah. I found that writing it is a good way of doing it because you can backtrack in that way as well. So where did that belief come from? Is it something that you have self-created, or is it something that's been handed to you? And a lot of, the voice is another indicator. Sometimes we'll say a particular line and it'll come out as a parent or a brother or a teacher, or it's someone else's voice pattern will kind of come in and take over. So being aware of your language and your arguments for limitation are kind of a layer, let's put it that way, of setting yourself free.
Right. And I think I understand what you're saying there. When a brother or an uncle or an ancestor comes through you and speaks through you, some of them are angry, some of them are happy, and some of them have their judgments, don't they? And then you pass them on in through your speech by channeling them.
Yeah, you've got that as well. Obviously, because of your epigenetic patterns, we're carrying things that we don't even realize where they've come from because it's in our bloodline. The expression that we have has come through our ancestors. So on a genetic level, those, even with tacit consent agreements, it's like we've had this conversation before, I think, but if somebody has a poverty vow that one of their ancestors made way back, that can still be passed on through the bloodline. So you want to know why you can't make money? Because one of your ancestors had a poverty vow and you're carrying it.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, for sure, 100%. And my mother had a very illuminated woman, really, in many ways, very ahead of her time. She's from Calabria, Italy, and when she came over at 14 to Australia, she had to learn English, etc. And she's very incredible how she's helped me be aware of this, because she would always point out in me what her ancestors were like and how I'm still doing those very things. Different things like sometimes when I get depressed, I guess, the fear and anxiety that I feel as well. She tends to believe that that's the family ancestral spirit. And she says, you've got it, you've got that ancestral thing, and she would point out where and when every time she would see it. Mm-hmm. And that helped me to see what was going on, and that there is contracts there that have to be have to be either tended to, changed, modified, improved, completed, signed off, I guess. And I've done a lot in that area as well. I really have. I've done a lot in ancestral.
But most of them are just a rebuttal as well. That you don't have to carry them. You can say no. I'm not going to, have that as an expression in my life. And there's also being able to set up a spiritual court of equity and do a contract, and I'm going to say this, a revocation.
Yes, got it. Revocation. There you go. What is your vocation? Well, revocate it. Is that the same line of thinking?
Yeah, it's a case of when you do a contract revocation or a revocation, you are reclaiming those aspects of yourself, whether it is from the government, whether it is from sacred geometry of buildings, whether it is from your ancestral lineage, whether it's a light work or a gender program. There are so many different ways that family crest is another one. So many different ways that you can be put under a soul contract with no knowledge of its existence.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, I think I know how all that happens, I've got a sneaking suspicion that I'm getting more understanding on how that happens. I see, for instance, when parents bring their children to be vaccinated and hurt their children, because usually that's what happens, and then they realize that it's harmful and they stop doing it. Somehow their ignorance up until that point was the enabler to hurt the next level of their generation. And so what that is suggesting then is that parents, we all have an onerous responsibility, I guess, to be able to try and discover what those contracts that we signed and we went into. Some of them are just contracts of blissful ignorance.
Yeah, we got those too.
And then that hurts our children, which in turn hurts us because we see our children hurt and our people around us and ourselves, So some of those are what we would call in ignorance, but really was it? Because there's always been someone there or some knowledge there that we've known, that we've sort of put away because it's not convenient at the time, which comes back and hurts us later on anyway. So those are some of the ways we come into contracts, right? We choose to put the blinkers on, and
I mean, the other thing as well, with vaccines and stuff like that, is that and things like abuse, physical, emotional, mental abuse when you're a child, is that any form of shock or trauma enacts a soul shattering. Your soul shatters at the shock of those things that are happening to you, and you can leave remnants of yourself in that stage of development.
Yes.
So that's another kind of reason why reclaiming your soul shards, knowing where they are. When did you separate from yourself?
Yes.
And being able to reclaim those aspects of self that you have separated, whether it is a hierarchical order being that you've put outside of yourself that's actually you, or whether it is the shock of having a vaccine as a baby, all of those things.
Gotcha. And I guess that's exactly what I was talking about. It's that these little events pull us away, the trauma, little bits of trauma, and that's an interesting word you use, soul shards. I feel that that's how we got to lose our soul, and how to reclaim it is through the path of knowledge, isn't it? Yeah. Facing knowledge, facing the truth. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It's not saying that you will know more lies. You will know the truth. Means it's literally saying that is a natural human process. You will get to know the truth that will set you free, but you have to face it.
Yep. You have to own the creation of it. You see, this is the thing. It's like, it's not just facing the trauma or whatever it was that happened to you. It's claiming that you created the separation in yourself, and all of the other layers that you've added on top of that.
Yep. I'm getting you more than ever, Karleen, because I'm in that stage of my life right now where I'm regrouping that soul. I've watched myself in the past, say, 10 years that I've been a syncretist, and I've seen some beautiful things come out of me, and I've also seen some bad things, really, really bad things, bad behaviour, bad language, bad thinking. And I've just wondered how I could have those two fountains, bitter water and sweet water, in the one well. And I realise what it is. It is just what you're saying. We've been traumatised, we've run away from our core soul, and we've allowed it to fragment into shards, and we haven't collected all those shard bits and reclaimed them. And when we do, we have to do it first in our hearts and by practice, and then we do it on paper and let the system know that we're recomposed, we're revocating.
Definitely. Absolutely, 100%. You have to do it for yourself. And the only person who knows you 100% is you. Mm-hmm. Anybody else can get a view of you, an idea of you, a perception of you, but you as a soul know every single thing that you could ever know about yourself.
Yes. For sure. For sure. And when you get to my place where I am, I don't know whether it's an age thing. I'm 56, but maybe not. I think people are doing it in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. You can do it any time. But it just so happens that it's taken me so long for me to do it. But when you do get to this place where you want to integrate all those shards, reclaim them, and put them back where they're supposed to be, like stuff that's fallen off the shelf after an earthquake, and then you just put it all back in place. It's called, in my opinion, I would call it the remembering. So I am remembering my lost parts, and it feels good because you then begin to love yourself and realise that you were a good individual all along. It's just that you have taken up other people's ways of thinking. You've because you haven't had all your integrated soul with you, you go looking for inspiration elsewhere. It's not the best inspiration, so you behave like other unruly people. You allow entities to come into your field. They also manipulate you. Then, of course, there's the frequencies, like your 5Gs, your chemtrails, and all of the other weaponry that are used against us, which also interfere with our thinking process and our heart's function, and come in between us and our loved ones, and cause rifts and fractures and disagreements, etc. So my pleasure is in restoring all of that so that I am less attacked by the negatives and more consistent and coherent as an individual, so that people know me better as a consistent, what I am consistently, you know. It's not consistent for me to be a truther and then to just throw that away by being aggressive and attacking people for not knowing what I know, etc. They're never going to get to know me, you know, because I'm throwing in all the wrong parts which I've acquired along the way. And so what a beautiful moment we are in history in that we can do this now, the remembering, the anamnesis, as the Neoplatonists called it.
It is absolutely beautiful, you know. Yeah. Absolutely.
For sure. All right, look, we've rounded out an hour. I see a lot of questions there that we might address after the break. We're going to have a few-minute break. We can just go to some music or what have you. I've got Gary there in the background ready for that. And when we come back, would you like to have a look at some of these questions? Or?
Yeah, sure.
Lovely. All right. Yeah, it looks like there's about 6 or 7 of there. So let's go, and we'll see you on the other side. Might be 3 or 4 minutes, but we'll catch you on the other side.
Hello, folks. This is Jordan Maxwell. It's a pleasure, again, to be able to talk with you. And I've been trying to wake people up to the facts of life that's going on the earth today. And this is what I'm known for. This is what I love doing, is trying to teach people and educate them. I have a piece of knowledge that you need to know about. There is a radio operation going on called People for People Radio, and I am delighted that I have been able to be on the People for People Radio, and I want to invite all of you to go to People for People Radio. Go on the web and find it and follow all the programs on People to People Radio. Fascinating stuff, I tell you. And thank you for hearing me. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Lizzie with Love Bubble, sharing my journey and speaking of healing energies, spirituality and awareness, bringing to the table insights of whom we truly are. Lizzie Love Bubble, 11 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, every Monday on peopleforpeople.ning.com. Be with us every Monday. See you there.
I'm Barbara.
Hey, and I'm Patty. Tune in Monday, 9 p.m. UK and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to People for People Radio, to the Turtle and Crow Show.
For an exciting, unique perspective on social and world events.
See you there.
It's Ouija here. Tune into my show on Fridays, 9 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Central time, and 4 p.m. Eastern time on People for People Radio. See you there, folks.
Lovely. Well, back for the second hour. You're with Santos Bonacci on People for People Radio, and my guest, my wonderful guest, Karleen Tammik, speaking on many themes, truth and sovereignty, and many subjects, and how to achieve this, and how to remember who you are, which is the most important part of the ascension process. Because when you forget who you are then putting your position where you are limiting yourself and don't know your power, your glory, and your capacity, the capacity you have to change yourself and the world. So it's been lovely, Karleen, to be able to talk about these things and the process by which we can do that in the world we're in and in the vessel we're in. So will you want to just recap those three things that you need to do?
Okay, so firstly, I would say that you need to make a live life claim, which claims the vessel that you're in. Then you need a sea pass, which allows you to travel from port to port. And then you would need a soul claim. And that's something I'm actually working on at the moment in Parsee Syntax Grammar. So it is an actual document, as well as doing your soul contract revocations.
The soul contract revocation seems to be the biggie, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, they are absolutely amazing. When you start doing soul contract revocations, what you're doing, obviously, because you are the god of yourself and your system, you are reprogramming the language that you have already been programmed in. So in your native tongue, you read a soul contract revocation out in your native tongue, because that's the one that you have been programmed in.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I was speaking over a muted mic. So would that be English or Calabrian in my case? Because my parents would have been speaking Calabrian, which is an Italian dialect.
So I would actually, for you, I would do both. If you can, translate the English documents into Calabrian, I would do both.
Wow. Okay, makes sense, doesn't it? Because the first language we ever speak is the language of love in our mother's womb. So we're not actually articulating any sounds, which is really what a language is. And this is why in court they want you to speak the official language. Right? So what does this official mean? Well, it means it belongs to an office. And all offices are owned by, yes, the Vatican. All offices. They own the whole field of offices. So if you're going to be speaking an official language in court, it's not your language. You don't own it because it's official. It's not. They're not saying speak in your language. Speak how you speak. They say no. You must speak. The official language of this court is English. So that cannot be your language because it's official, meaning it belongs to the office or an office. So I'm lucky because Calabrian is not official at all. There's no recognition of it as an official language. They just say it's a dialect. So I'd be able to do that without even having to use English whatsoever.
It's also kind of understanding what the dictionaries are that anybody else uses. Part of our babbling, is and what causes confusion is your meaning of a word could be completely different to mine, depending on the emphasis that has been used, not just in courts and stuff like that, but also in your life. We assume and presume that the meaning that we have for a particular word is going to be the same for somebody else. So it's also, knowing which dictionary people are using.
Right. Well,
so there's less confusion in language, which is why passe, syntax, grammar is one way of getting out of that, because you speak in fact with passe, syntax, grammar. It's a quantum language of now. There's no past or present tense in it.
Gotcha. Hey,
but we're not. The issue with that at the moment is that because passe, syntax, grammar is not a social agreement, it's not recognised as a language. So the more people that use it, the more people that know how to write and speak correct, the more that will come in as a social agreement.
Yes, because the highest law is custom, right?
Yep.
And if it's your custom to speak in such a way, well, then that's your language. You don't have to speak official language. You see? There's the spelling side of English, that official side, that legalese, official prestige that it has, because the reason why it's an official language is because the office controls the words and how the dictionaries and how they are to be interpreted and can be interpreted, so that they can write their documents with a forked tongue, with two meanings. Whereas if we speak from intent from our hearts and reclaim the words and make a I suppose preface our writings to that and address that issue that you're reclaiming the words. Hence, when you use I, it's not just in reference to the body and the corporate name. It's in reference to everything that you believe to be I, which you've already established. You've established that I means my divinity, my nameless soul, my nameless spirit, my unconditioned everything that pertains to my field. And so, wow, we can reclaim a lot of power with this, can't we?
Yes. Yeah. If you do all of those steps, all of the power that you have given away through tacit consent, i.e. silence, you can reclaim it all. And then you can have that unlimited point of view.
Gotcha. Wow. So, what are some of the things about the syntax language that you can share with us? I remember there were a few things. For instance, do they have 8 parts to the language as opposed to 9? I think there's
7, I think. They're numbered. It's a mathematical language as well, so it reads forwards and backwards the same. It's like a balanced equation, So there's no participles, there's no hanging elements that are kind of in remainder. Parsing syntax grammar is an equal language. It's quantum, so it kind of balances itself out. You read it backwards and forwards the same.
Right. Wow.
It's okay. So if I try and break down some words, maybe that will help a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, everybody goes on about the present present. If you are in now time and everything is now, then there is no pre-sent. Because you can't pre-send something.
That's right.
So it takes you, that word actually takes you to a point before now. So you're actually linking yourself to a past sending.
So when the key word at school, I remember when they did roll call, was, are you present? And you would say, present. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then in the military, I think they do that as well. And then in court, is Mr. Bonacci present?
Present.
Has he been pre-sent?
Yep.
And so you stand up and you say, I'm present. In other words, you're pre-sent, but doesn't mean that you're in the now.
No, because you have come from a previous self into that moment.
So the wise individual would always ask a question. What does present mean? What do you mean by present? Please explain the word present.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because then you have their definition and then you can answer the question correct.
Exactly. I notice you don't say answer the question correctly. Why is that?
Because that's another suffix.
Okay.
So presently, a li is a no contract word.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that you have no contract in that word. So yes, I say correct rather than correctly. Because correct would mean it's not. Correctly would mean it's uncorrect. Or incorrect.
There you go.
Correct.
Oh, wow. All right, here I've got someone. This is from Vanessa. So neutrons, protons, electrons. Has Karleen been through this process? I'm not sure I know what she means by that.
Are you talking about?
Well, just that. Neutrons, protons, electrons. Have you been through this process? I don't really know what that means, to be honest.
And has she implemented it into her ongoing? Okay, so if I say that the way that I see things is probably a quantum level. I see, when I say epigenetic patterns, I see the overlay over people's DNA, and I can extract that by what I do with psychic surgery.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that. I really want to talk about psychic surgery. I know we've done a little bit in the past, but I do want to touch on that. So what she's asking here is, have you implemented that in your way of life? And have you rebutted the commercial social contract? There you go. So have you rebutted the commercial social contract? That would be the corporate name, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have rebutted that, and I should have actually introduced myself as Karleen Tammik. as I am a live life claimant. You know, I have actually gone through that process myself, yes.
Okay, so once I was looking at the Glosser channel there, and I was looking to, because they had come across this knowledge as well, and how to use the colon and everything, the full colon, and how to use that in front of the name and separating all the names, right? So
Yep.
is this the same, similar, or?
Yeah, I mean, the full colon means for the. So for the Karleen, for the Tammik. That is the correct grammar, because you're creating a distinction between your first and family name.
Yes. Gotcha. So, in other words, it shows that you're not going to be using it, or you don't recognize it, or you just...
I don't recognize my full capital name because that makes me a dead person, and I'm not dead.
Yes. And that shows then that you know this, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you're doing?
Yes. That I have some knowledge.
Right. Great. Is that enough to keep them off your back, or, well, obviously...
I haven't had any issue with anyone, really.
Great. Wow. So that's a great way to begin, isn't it? In the journey. And do you have to then register this, or do you not register?
You have
record?
to copy. You what you do is you with your live life claim, you are copy claiming your name. So you then have authority over it.
Is that similar to what they call private creditor? What's commercial creditor? That system?
I don't know about that. I can't speak of anything that isn't first-hand knowledge, so I don't actually know that, whether that's similar. I haven't heard that.
Okay, so some people make themselves the creditor, right? So instead of the debtor,
Oh, right, okay.
secured party private creditor, I think they call it. Yeah, and by using the birth certificate to change their status.
Yeah, well, you would probably do that because you're collapsing the trust, aren't you? Your Sescovy trust.
Yeah.
So by collapsing that, you're then becoming the creditor of it.
Okay, secured party. It's called secured party private creditor, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, there's a lot of friends I have that have done that, and they've done it well. Right, they haven't made mistakes, and they've been able to use. Basically, they've just copyrighted that name and taken first claim, right? So
Yep.
other people will need their permission to use it before, and if they do.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. You copyright, copy claim it. Yeah.
All right.
That's how I know how to use it, is by copyright, copy claiming, by writing over your name and and putting your stamp on it. There's a whole process, but the best person to teach that, because my knowledge is very limited on that area, would be Mark Kishon Christopher. That's where I would send people to gain the knowledge that they need for a live life claim and a C pass. He does go into C passes as well.
Yeah, I remember he did a video on that about 6 months ago. What is the C pass?
Okay, so C pass allows you to pass through the port. Mm-hmm. So, if you're going from, the roads are waterways, so travelling from one place to another, or a seaport, it's like a passport, passport.
Airport, shipping port, the docks, the doctors in the ports where you bring children into the portal, into the world. So those docks are the same doctors, and those are the portals, right? So you need a pass, a sea pass. That makes sense, rather than a land pass, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because the roadways across the land, everything's maritime. They are canals and waterways.
Shipping and lanes.
Shipping lanes. Yeah.
Right. That's why they've got lanes on the road now, because it's all about shipping and commerce.
Yep.
Right. Which lane were you on? The left lane or the right lane? There you go. So a C pass, where do you get those?
I would again go to Mark's work. You're going to need the knowledge. It's really important that people do this for themselves and go through the knowledge, because it's really the knowledge that enables you to be able to use any document and create your own contracts. So you can create your own contract rather than allowing, the postal service to deliver a contract to your home through your letterbox.
Gotcha. Right.
And being able to correct the grammar of letters that come through your letterbox is how you rebut them. But yeah, Mark is so, he has years of working with this stuff. So I would definitely say if you can get onto one of his webinar courses, I think they're between 8 and 12 weeks long, do it.
Gotcha. Well, he's been at it for years now.
Yeah, he has, long time. He knows his stuff, definitely.
Yeah. Yep. And the post office being the highest office, there we go again, in the land, right?
Well, they own the land.
From the post office, right?
Yeah. They own all of the land on planet Earth.
And that's run by Switzerland.
Yeah, Bern is the head office is in Bern, Switzerland.
Wow. That's just incredible. Bern. Look at the word burn, huh?
It's, one of the strange things about when you start doing, well, for me anyway, when I started to do parsé syntax grammar, your brain suddenly moves into this completely different position, and there's certain words that kind of come up and you go, oh, I can't say that, because it's incorrect. And your brain suddenly kicks into this having to correct the language. It's really interesting. Well, for me it is anyway.
Yeah, for me it is as well, because I'm constantly trying to improve the languages that I speak. and looking for ways to be a better speaker, to hit the nail on the head with less wordy, flowery expressions, and to be able to use the choice, correct words in every sentence possible, you know, and and especially when I'm writing, you know, because sometimes I write things that I feel are so true and right at the moment, and then the next day I'll look at it and I'll think, where was I? What was I thinking when I wrote that? And that's not the way to post some information about that. And I'll have to go back in and reword my posts sometimes, you know, so I'm always editing them. But I do take a lot of have a lot of joy when I look at them in hindsight and realise that I did some good wording, you know, if I take the time. So it is very important. Let's talk about the healing side of the stuff you do, Karleen, while we've got you. Let's. What's the name of it and how does it work?
Okay, so what I would call myself is a multidimensional psychic surgeon, and I have been a psychic surgeon, I guess, since the age of 8. I started physically. My mum had gallstones when I was 8 years old, and I realised that I could actually put my hand inside her body and break the stones up. So that was kind of my first experience of psychic surgery. And going on from there, I have learned how to work quantumly, so I can see into your cells, I can see into your energy field, I can take out anything I find, and yeah, the relief that people have had, you know, has been quite amazing in some cases. What else do you want to know?
Oh, just please talk about it as much as possible. We did have a session once, didn't we?
We had a few sessions, yeah. I think we had three sessions together. Yeah.
Okay, so could you tune into my field then and see what, what's my weaknesses and strengths? I don't mind. I know it's personal and private, but I don't care. I've been telling people about my health issues in my productions for at least a year and 6 months now, and people know that I've had an itching problem. What else?
We worked on that a little bit, didn't we? And we were looking at, do you remember I sent you the images of the fungus?
Yes.
And you're starting to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So is the itching still an issue?
It improved back in June when I did a dog worming and horse worming protocol. Ivermectin and fenbenzidol saved my life. I got 4 months straight of no itching. Then on October the 13th, an incident happened. A guy tried to kill me and another woman where I was staying, and he ended up getting killed within 5 or 10 minutes of attacking us. He brought a baseball bat and a knife to the party, and he was an ex-hockey player, so he knew how to swing the bat, but didn't know how to protect himself, and so he ended up dead. And that kind of shifted my field. Within 4 days, I remember on October the 18th, the itching started to come back subtly, and it has been for 2 months after that, and now all of January has been very strong. I've had very little itching. So I'm improving as well again. I've sort of been able to wrestle with that incident and how it changed my whole field and upset that 4 months that I had of perfect health.
Yeah.
It tried to destroy it, but I'm not going to let it.
Good. Because, this is again where I come in about when we have a shock situation, what people will go, oh, I felt out of sorts, I haven't quite felt myself. That they are language indicators of a soul sharding.
Yeah.
So when you go, I'm not allowing that to happen, that's fantastic, because you're claiming authority over your body and what you are allowing and what you're not. Okay, so if I'm looking at your field at the moment, you still have issue with your liver. There's some issue with your liver at the moment.
Sure.
So I would say that that is also where a lot of your anger is stored.
Yes.
And this is, for me, something that you actually came in with. So it may not even be yours. There's an over angry aspect to you, which isn't yours. It's part of your genetic lineage. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. Okay. I know this myself anyway. I know this. It's true.
So, I always work on 100% consent. So as a sovereign free will being of choice, I have to ask your permission to be able to work on any layer that I highlight. So are you okay with removing that from your system?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do then is backtrack to where that actually came in. So what I'd like you to do is, if you see like a red thread going from the back of your heart space. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that red thread is going to follow, you're going to follow the line back to the origin point in your genetic lineage, your bloodline. So it's going to go back right the way to the end of your genetic lineage, to where it began, where that pattern began.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Once you've got to the end of the line, we're going to highlight the epigenetic pattern, the strand of DNA that pattern is on. And as you draw the line back, it's going to release itself from everyone in your genetic lineage that has carried that pattern until it gets back to you.
Yep. Do I need to do anything?
We're going to go further. Okay. So we're going to now push that from the front of your heart to 7 generations into the future. And anyone else that could be carrying that pattern. And then when you've gone through the 7 generations of your future, we're going to do the same thing. we're going to remove that epigenetic pattern off of the lineage and bring that red line back to you. Okay?
It certainly is, for sure.
Okay.
Yes,
So now, right, okay, so because you are the being in the present moment of now, you are taking responsibility for that pattern. Okay?
Yes.
So we're going to relieve you of that pattern. So you're going to see it coming outside of your body, from your liver, through your skin. And I'm going to dissolve it. And as it dissolves through you, it will dissolve through all of the lineage that have held it previously and your 7 generations into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So as a percentage, what percentage is your liver functioning at the moment?
What I estimate it to be working at?
No, I want you to not think about it. If you breathe back into your heart space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what percentage is your liver functioning at the moment?
80%.
Okay. And what do you require to get it to 100%?
Well, I probably require to transform the block that is blocking it and my mental powers to be able to enable it. It's probably a mental block, I think, or emotional, but I would need to transcend that.
Okay, so you know your light, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I want you to do then is to breathe as you would when you are doing your practice.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see yourself. Have you ever seen yourself in your light body, the golden body?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you put yourself into your golden body of light, and we're just going to restructure your liver slightly so that it's functioning for 100%. Okay. So Santos, I'm nipping over to you etherically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've done this with me before. You might feel my hands inside your body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I'm doing, if I explain what I'm doing, is that I'm now recalibrating and realigning your etheric body with your physical body so that they are talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So how's that feeling now?
Great. I felt a lot of movement, actually. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your liver function now?
I think it's improved immensely, probably 100%. Yeah, I'm sure it has.
Awesome job.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I realise the liver is part of the blockage there, because the liver is also the seat of emotions, right? And emotion forms, emotion waves. It's also dealing with bitterness, resentment.
Yeah.
You carry all those in the liver, is that right?
Yeah, bitterness and resentment you do. Although saying that, everybody's different. So although we go, oh, well, that's because that sits in that position, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we stuff things all over the place because we don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
We've got, these patterns of regeneration. So every time that your cells regenerate, along comes the pattern with it, until you actually extract the pattern and you're no longer running that program.
See, this is the thing. I don't remember any incident that was so traumatic, that was of a great loss, that could cause the kind of anger that I had. I don't understand. Was it a series of things? Was it just past life? Because I don't remember anything.
It's because it wasn't yours. The reason that you don't remember anything is because it wasn't your pattern in the first place. This is an ancestral bloodline lineage pattern that you've been carrying. So you won't you won't remember.
Right. So no amount of past life regressions, meditations are going to cause me to see that event, because it's not there. I'm just carrying...
It wasn't your event. You're just carrying the pattern for your genetic lineage. If it was a past life thing, you would... if I asked you a question, you would remember the origin being from yourself. If it is an epigenetic pattern, there's no memory to it. So it's a case of tracing it back to its origin. Right.
It makes sense to me. It really does. I've got a fairly good idea of my mother's ancestry when I went to Italy in 2013. Before I met you, actually, it was the month before, and I was with my family down in Calabria there, and I got to meet all my mother's uncles and cousins and everything, and I saw the same thing that I see in the relatives that migrated over to Australia, that same kind of spirit there, a little bit depressed, yes, way more intellectual than the Bonacci side of the family, my father's side, way more intellectual. But with that came, I found, a lot of sadness and depression, which my mother also has. So it's very interesting. I do understand that a lot better now, that it's coming from an ancestral thing. So this is why it's so important for individuals not to just go to doctors and get their diagnoses and allopathic medications. I would go to more than one to diagnose anything that you've got which is even remotely related to depression or any kind of physical ailments that you have, Certainly I wouldn't stop at one. I wouldn't just trust the one individual, because you could be misdiagnosing. And a lot of the fear, anxiety, pain, suffering, loneliness, depression, anger, resentment that we feel may not actually be of our doing. I've always been feeling guilty. What have I done? What did I do? Why do I feel like this at times. So what bad crime did I commit in the past? Well, maybe I didn't, And maybe it was just the ancestral spirit. And so there are certain other things that you can do, like tarpanam. Tarpanam is a ceremony which only takes a few minutes every day, where you can offer grains and currency and liquids to your ancestors so that they can be fed, so that they can be nourished, and so that they can be freed as well to go back to the white light and to go back to cause, and then to be able to bless you from there. Because many of the reasons why we're not succeeding, getting wealthy, getting healthy, having the life that we dream of, is because the ancestors are actually holding us back, because they are being held back. This is why the Jesuits... Go on.
Sorry, this is something else that I work on quite a lot, is because we haven't had our ancestors on the land, in the UK, working in the correct way. A lot of souls are still trapped on the earth plane, and we get ghosting, which can also be a form of depression, anxiety, fear, because what we're doing in those instances is we're expressing those for the disincarnate that are attached to us. So another aspect of what I do is land work. I help the earth as well, and look at multi-dimensional healing of the earth plane, so that we're not all getting interfered with from ancestral spirits that are just trying to get our attention most of the time, because they are still in pain, they are still hurting, they are still angry, they are still whatever it was that they died with, so that they can move on from here, they in the right way.
For sure. I urge the listeners, please look into the subject of tarpanam, T-A-R, one of my favourite words, Taurus, torsion fields, and then it's one word, tarpanam, P-A-N-A-M. And Dr. Pillay is a wonderful teacher of this process. He teaches you how you can do this in 2 minutes every day, 1 minute ritual, where you actually feed your ancestors and free them. Feed and free them. And you also empower them to bless you and your life, and to remove all the restrictions, because they are ghosting. They are still living as limited ghosts, waiting for their descendants to pay them some attention. And this is why the Jesuits have been busy for hundreds of years in Africa, in South America, everywhere they go, weeding out the so-called witches and wizards and doctors of ancestral worship and ancestral devotion. This ancestor aspect of worship and religion has always been with humanity. It's just that the corporate churches poo-poo it and tell you that it's demonic and it's evil and it's wrong and we shouldn't be talking to our ancestors and just God and so forth and all this hogwash. Well, no. They're doing this so that you can be cursed, so that you can continue reincarnating, and so that you remain a limited ghost with your ancestors, because you haven't done the work. You have not done the work to release yourself of all of these contracts which are binding, which you didn't even want to be contract with, etc. So this is a very powerful way to free yourself, folks. I would look into it and give it a go. I did many years ago, and it changed the course of my life. All of these things that I do have enabled me to continue. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm healthy. I'm happy to a degree, and I'm still conscious and aware, and my truthing is improving every minute of my life. So I consider that to be from all the things that I'm doing. I do what I speak. I do practice it, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. As I see people all around me in their 20s and 30s and 40s dying, contracting illnesses and diseases which have never afflicted me, etc. So here's one way. In fact, we've spoken about two ways, Karleen, and I wish to thank you because we've come to the top of the second hour as well now. So we've discussed two ways in which we can empower ourselves, folks. The sovereignty way, the life claim, and through ancestral healing and ceremonies that we can do. So can we share your contact with people? How do they get to...
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. My Facebook is facebook.com/soul directed, and you'll come into kind of my page. And just to say that if anyone is in London, I will be doing a decree of sovereignty and a soul contract revocation on the 2nd of February in London at Speaker's Corner, about 12 noon. So if anyone fancies joining me for that, you're more than welcome.
Nice. Do you have any YouTube videos or channel?
I have a couple of podcasts. I'm kind of just starting to get my content together. So I've got a couple of podcasts that I put out. I've got another one coming on Thursday. My YouTube channel is coming on its way. So I'm a busy girl.
Yeah, I know.
I'm working on it, but yeah, it's all coming. It's all coming.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me, Karleen, and certainly down the track we'll do it again. So,
well, I'm hoping you're coming to England soon, sir.
Oh yeah, I know. I've been talking to you about this since start of last year, and in fact I said I'd be there in October, but plans have changed. But I'm looking at either going to Portugal with Martin Kenny. You'd know Martin Kenny, wouldn't you? Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's set himself up with a beautiful syncretism permaculture property now there in Portugal, and I've got the option of going there. I've got the option of going to Nicaragua or Costa Rica to set something up. But my goal is, which I will be talking more about on this show, is to start some syncretism academies, or at least one, somewhere. So I'm looking for benefactors, helpers, supporters, people that can guide and advise. Can I ask you
another question quickly?
Mm-hmm.
Seminary.
Haha. There you go. What to do with your semen.
Right. So are you going to set up a physical seminary where you're teaching that side of things?
Absolutely. It will be an academy/seminary, and I will be returning the ancient science of what to do with your precious light semen, rather than ejaculating it and throwing it around all over the place, misusing it, how to use it to rebuild the Christ nervous system, which will give Christ consciousness to individuals, which is what I am doing and experiencing daily. So yes, I will be, Karleen. Absolutely. It will be my joy to help young men not make the mistakes I did.
That's fantastic. And if you want a female counterpart in that, let me know.
For sure, sister. We will need the advanced sisters to be able to teach this as well to their kindred, and they will feel comfortable being taught that by the wise Isis sisters as well. So for sure, Karleen, you'll be a part of it. I know Martin's doing it already. We're all implementing these things which are ascending and making us the king and the priest, which the Gospels are teaching us to become. So hallelujah. and glory unto this beautiful spiritual process of apotheosis and of ascension, transcendence. And I'm so happy to say that this station has enabled a home, a residency for syncretism and truthers alike. And so once again, please support People for People Radio, folks, and send them support in any way you can. Prayers, financial, material support, even just sharing around the name, the website, the radio's credentials and details, so that people can be tuned to syncretism, because once a week now it has a home and it has a voice. So I wish to also say thank you to Gary to enable that. And thank you to the listeners. We will see you next week. On next week's show, we've got Stephen, I forget his surname, but we'll be talking about conspiracies and everything to do with the enemies of freedom and sovereignty, etc. So stay tuned for that one. Same channel, same time. Thank you, Karleen, and thank you, listeners. Goodbye until next week.
Thanks, Santos.
Hello, folks. This is Jordan Maxwell. It's a pleasure, again, to be able to talk with you. And I've been trying to wake people up to the facts of life that's going on the earth today. And this is what I'm known for. This is what I love doing, is trying to teach people and educate them. I have a piece of knowledge that you need to know about. There is a radio operation going on called People for People Radio, and I am delighted that I have been able to be on the People for People Radio, and I want to invite all of you to go to People for People Radio. Go on the web and find it and follow all the programs on People to People Radio. Fascinating stuff, I tell you. And thank you for hearing me. Bye-bye.